7:47 in the morning. It is 13 away from 8 o'clock. It's the voice of Indiana County, WCCS 101.1 FM, AM 1160, and WCCSradio.com. He is Bob Pollock, the Penn State Extension. He joins us this morning and every Friday morning to talk about lawns and gardens and trees and stuff. And you can give him a call at 479-1160 or 349-WCCS if you have a question. Boy, did we get rain. We've been looking for it all summer long. We found it.
Yes, we did.
And we're getting more of it today, but then it's going to clear out, and it looks like it'll be a very nice weekend. But, there's a lot of cleanup that folks have to do. And there are a lot of trees that have come down. And we have talked in the past about when you this is the time to identify those trees that are in trouble. And you can usually do so by the number of bare branches up in there. There might be some trees don't have any leaves left after that wind the other day. But, thinking about trees, I had to saw up a bunch of trees this week that came down in the storm. None of them were hollowed out. But how does one know when you have a pretty substantial tree? How do you know when it's hollow inside and it's in danger?
Well, step back there, and you were cutting up trees that weren't hollow inside, but yet they came down. Mm-hmm. So now we got to go look at the root system, which we can't see, of course. So why did that tree come down? Obviously, there was maybe some root issues there that we couldn't see. There were no signs or symptoms. The tree maybe had the limbs all had leaves on them. There was no dieback. Sometimes if we see dieback on branches, not little branches or interior branches, but kind of main branches within the canopy, if there's some dead ones there, then we can start to think about, well, there might be something wrong with the root system, and it might be soil related, it might be competition related, and we can start stacking those up too. As multiple reasons why something might fail. So when you get in a more wooded situation where you have a lot of other trees around, there may be limitations there, for soil moisture, for soil nutrients, just competition, things out competing other things, and so something might be a little bit smaller, but it could be the big one too.
Yeah.
That just is kind of aging out. There might be fungal organisms that are attacking the base of the tree. One of the things you can look for, are there mushrooms growing, or they call them conchs, but are there shelf fungi or other fungal, they'll send up their mushrooms for spores.
Yeah, we all see them.
So that, especially like on oaks, you can see that at the base, where it flares out at the bottom and the roots then go out. But right at the base of the tree, you can see that. Sometimes you can see those shelf fungi come out of they'll just be growing right there on the side of the trunk of the tree.
Yeah.
But that's an indication that there's issues in there, there's decay, and so you get those fungi growing. Now, sometimes, a tree can go a long time with things like that on there, and it might be getting hollowed out in the center, but still the living part of the tree, which is right underneath the bark the whole way around, is still functioning. So we're getting water and nutrients moving, but that heartwood, all those dead cells that collect year after year after year and become that support system for the tree, structural support, so that when the wind blows, it's able to still move. That can still decay a lot. You can have a hollowed out tree, but as long as that bark and the vascular system is in place, it'll stand till an event happens or it just declines over time.
Yeah.
So those are all things we can look for that can be indicators. But usually if you get those fungi growing at the base of the tree, that's a warning system that there's some serious issues going on here that we need to deal with. And those won't be evident at all times of the year.
Yeah.
So you just that regular and especially if it's a tree in the yard, and that potentially, if something happens to it, it could cause damage to either structures or people. Then we want to be paying more attention to those. Those can be put in that higher risk.
Yeah. I think I asked you in a previous year, do people take core samples of trees like that?
Yes, certified arborists, they'll have a little tool that with a real fine drill bit on it, and they can actually drill into the tree, and that's one of the ways that they will check the integrity internally of the tree. Is it solid, which it should be? Is there discoloration? So when you bring those little fine bits of sawdust out, then you look at that. Is there a color difference? Is it all one color? Is there nothing coming out? Which would indicate that it's hollow in there.
There's nothing
and
there.
Of course, a lot of dark stuff could indicate decay, that there's rot in there. And then they can graph that. It'll actually print that on a piece of graph paper, and it'll also tell the density of that. So it'll give you a line, and then that helps indicate what's going on in there.
Can you also tell if there are little elves making cookies
Yeah,
inside your hollow tree?
or squirrels, or
Sometimes I wonder.
is the raccoon hanging out in there?
Sometimes I wonder if there are little elves in there making cookies.
Right,
because I've seen it on TV.
Yeah, and if there are some broken branches, say there were some branches that broke at one point in time, so we have jagged edges. Is there decay going back in there? Was that able to grow new growth over that and close it off to protect the inside of the tree? Or was that an entry point over time where water can just keep working? And then, of course, we've got the winter with ice and snow and things that can also then continue that decay process and cause internal decay higher up, which then eventually, gravity, water's going to sit in there, and then it's going to just keep working its way down. So all those things are things that can be looked at. But, sometimes with that root system, if we have drought, any big stresses over time that could kill roots, which we won't necessarily see that, but we could see some wilting up there. We could start to see some dead branches here or there in a tree. And then we got to start thinking about, what events happened that could have caused some root damage that we need to be paying attention to this tree.
Garden question this morning. I've got Brussels, but no sprouts. Now the Brussels sprouts, the sprouts will form later. I know in the growing season. Yes. Is it too early for me to be looking for sprouts right now? Because I know the Japanese beetles, they went hard after the Brussels sprouts this year for some reason, and the other plants. It's not that they ignored them, but they didn't do the damage that they did to the Brussels sprouts. Yeah,
those take a long time to grow. They're a longer season plant, so it's probably early yet. You may not see that till later this month or into September.
Leaves
because
oftentimes,
shoot up, and the leaves, and that can stress them, and that may be delaying that. They may be putting more emphasis on trying to regrow some new leaves. And so and then the drier weather too will affect that.
So I can still hold out hope.
So hold out, yeah. As long as you can keep leaves on there and keep them going, you'll probably get some.
All right.
And then oftentimes we don't want those, and you don't even want to harvest them till after we get a nice frost or two.
I've heard
in the fall, because then that starts to build the sugars up in there, and they'll be tastier.
I love my Brussels sprouts. All right, so
and they're good for you.
They
me.
They love
and
me
everybody
too.
else.
They love me too. All right, so we'll try to dry out this weekend. We'll
Yeah.
try to clean up. There's a lot of people that have to clean up their yards. They've got leaves and trees and branches down, and I wondered about with smaller trees if you're chopping up stuff around them and you run over the roots of those. that are a little closer to the surface if that would harm those trees. Certainly with a smaller tree, if you're going to cut the root up a little bit, that's going to hurt.
Right, right. Yeah, especially when the ground's saturated now. Any travel over top of that, potentially can cause compaction, actual physical damage to the roots, or from the compaction, will not be as good a growing conditions for them. There's less room for, when we smash that soil down, there's less room for water and air, and the roots need both of those. And so we've got this solid chunk of soil there, and it's not as good of an environment for things to grow.
All righty. There you go. Thanks, sir.
You're welcome.
Stay dry.
You be a little tough this morning, but maybe later today we'll
stay out of the mud.
Nah, not for a few days, right?
It is the voice of Indiana County. It's WCCS 101.1 FM, AM 1160, WCCSradio.com. Yeah, we're actually trying to stay out of the garden right now because it's all soggy and muddy, and we don't want to compact that soil. I've learned that from Bob Pollock here on Indiana in the Morning.